All right. Hopefully we're live. This is welcome to the Dev Talk Show. I think I got the timing right on that. I was a little maybe I was off a little bit, but how's everybody doing tonight? Here we are, live. It's Wednesday night. If it's Wednesday night, it's time for the Dev Talk Show, and I'm here with Rich Ross and a hole in the middle between us, a big void, a sad void that it's just the two of us tonight. So, well, we'll talk about that in a minute. Rich, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Andy. Happy to be here putting another show together. So unfortunately, we are missing one of our usual threesome here, but no doubt we'll have a good show. Although he will be missed.
Yeah, so Chris isn't available tonight, as that happens with us sometimes. As a matter of fact, I won't be available next week, and I don't even know. Maybe we're not even having a show next week, actually, right? Is that right, Rich?
Yeah, next week is because Chris is out, you are away, and I am terrible as a solo act. So we are going to take next week off, and we're going to come back. It's not up on the meetup yet, but hopefully by the end of the show it will be. We're going to talk on the 20th about Power Apps. We're finally going to come around to that Power Apps conversation. So looking forward to doing that one and seeing where that conversation goes. So.
Yeah, I'm excited for that conversation because I think I mentioned this before, right? And we'll get into tonight's show, eventually, right? But but I find Power Apps and that stuff like really interesting, and I'm coming at it as a developer. And I just want to, like we could talk about this again next week, but I will say that honestly, I approached Power Apps with a bit of skepticism, where I'm kind of like, I'm a developer. That's not for me. I don't need that.
Really?
I can write the code. I don't need the power. And then you start looking at Power Apps and you start playing around. And you start going, well, okay, there's something going on here, and there's it's worthy. It's really cool stuff in there, And I was like, and that's where I get to be like, well, all right, maybe maybe I can use it for some stuff. And then the more you think about it, you look at the whole Power Platform, right? And it's a lot there. It's really cool stuff. So I'm looking forward to next week's show. Not next week's, to the next show.
Yes, in 2 weeks. Yeah, and it's one of those things where there's a lot there for sure, but it's also one of those things where it's not an either or, right? It's not, hey, I'm the non-developer person, I'm going to create a Power App. There's a synergy there between both camps. And I think that's where the interesting discussion is for this group, because even as a developer, pro developer, there's opportunities and things that are needed from the IT pro side or the professional developer side that make it able for the non-developer to do what they want to do.
Yeah. And I really like the other part that sort of scared me up front, and then until I learned, right? What scared me up front is, I have these fears of citizen developer sort of stuff getting out of control and people building things. And next thing you know, there's connections to, and IT is not in control. And I love the governance around the Power Platform. There's really cool stuff there. There's a lot of ways to monitor what's going on and control what's going on, right?
Yeah, it's not access. It's not some of the other things that we used to that came part of Office. And hey, that's cool. Let's build a database, right? and let the IT folks support it. It's not like that. It's not like those platforms before. There's definitely a good governance story as well, which may be a little bit separate. We might have a separate conversation focusing on the governance side of it for sure.
Maybe that's a topic all in itself, right? So anyway, and hello, Dark Elders out there watching. We saw the comment from you. Yeah, I'm having a great week. I hope you're having a great week too. And Chops is here. Hey, Chops. So you guys, we're missing Chris tonight. I feel like if I say we're missing Chris tonight, we're gonna all of a sudden see like the hang up symbol, like from Chops and Dark Elder. People are just gonna be like, oh great, Swami's, here, and Rich is here. Where's Chris? But Chris is doing some stuff, and so we're gonna do a show here tonight. So
Yeah.
we
And if
had a
you
planned. Go ahead.
I was gonna throw one more thing out there that I thought was kind of interesting.
Oh yeah.
That was in the news this week actually. And let me see if I
Oh
can
yeah. What do you got?
share my screen. I got to share that through Skype. Skype. Where are you? Here we go. There. Yeah, that looks right. Start sharing. Let's get rid of
Thanks,
that.
Chops.
Let's bring
Chops says it's
this up.
okay. Yeah, I appreciate that, Chops. Yeah, what do you got here?
So I thought
Oh,
this was
yeah,
really
yeah.
cool.
What's up with this? I did see something about this.
Yeah, so this is really odd. And it's been a while since we talked about cognitive services and some of the cool things that you can do with those technologies. Cognitive services are, well, as without being redundant about the name, they're basically services in Azure that let you bring in AI capabilities to your applications. So there are services related to text and speech, and the bots actually fall into that when we think of the language services that are associated with that,
Mm-hmm.
and Q&A maker. All of those things are part of this bucket of general services we call cognitive services. One of those that I is probably my favorite of all of them is something called computer vision, and that's the ability to take images and train an AI model to to recognize items. In this case, this is something that is happening up in up in up at the International Space Station, where if you think about it, right, they're still it's called low Earth orbit, right? They're not completely far out. They're you know several hundred miles, or I can figure out if it's miles or kilometers, up. But it's very easy to get communication back and forth. And one of the things that they do, because these spacesuits have been around for a while, is they often send pictures back down to let the technicians at NASA on the ground take a look at those pictures and see if those suits have undue wear on them. And that's what we're looking at here is a picture of the gloves of one of the astronauts. And you think about it, opening and closing the gloves, that little space, or the space in between the thumb and the and the index finger, there's a lot of wear that happens there, and there are multiple layers inside of these gloves. And what they're doing is they can take pictures. What they would do normally is take pictures, send those pictures back down to NASA. They would look at them, say if they need to replace them or repair them or what have you, and be able to translate that up. Think about all the communication or all of the conversation we've been having in space and talking about back to the moon, going back to Mars. If we go to Mars, to be able to have a transmission come from Mars to the Earth takes 20 minutes. To send something back from the Earth to Mars is another 20 minutes. So your round trip just for one, round trip of a message is, 40 minutes or 2/3 of an hour. How are we going to do that in transmitting all this data back and forth? So they're starting to think about what can we do to take some of these things that people are doing with these images and move them to a place that's on board where these spaceships are. And that's what's happening here. So this is looking at an image of somebody looking at their gloves, and then computer vision is looking at that and making a determination of the green bounding box being, hey, how confident am I that this is a glove? And from that glove, how much wear is on those individual gloves that the person is using. And it's a pilot, right? It's being done in parallel with the things that are still being done normally, just like a controlled test. But this is some of the things that we need to think about as we start moving further. As we think about the eventuality of hopefully being able to fly further and further away from Earth and be able to be out there on our own without having to always call home.
It's so cool. It's so
Yeah.
cool. Now, we've talked about this on the show before, I believe, but I've actually done some work in computer vision as well, and had really good experiences. I agree that I think the cognitive services are really cool, really fun place to work. Nothing I've ever worked on has made it to the space station, and that's just so cool to think about like that. These guys are building stuff that's helping us with some really cool things. It's really interesting how precise things can be. That they can tell
Yeah.
the amount of wear by the size of the crease, I guess is what it is, or something like that. But they can they can really measure that. I guess because it's high res photos or whatever it is, and that they can see that. I wrote an app that could determine the breed of a horse from a photo of a horse. Um,
Nice.
yeah, it was pretty cool. I hadn't gotten like too many breeds in there. I had gotten like five or six, right?
Okay.
And it was pretty cool. It was working. We ended up not finishing it for other reasons, but it was really cool. Just the fact, and everybody was really impressed at work. Everybody's like, "Wow!" The photos telling us like what kind of horse this is, and um, it's pretty interesting. And so much of this stuff, to training this is definitely something that can, like if people are having wonders of whether they can actually do this or not, you can. Try
Yeah.
out these things. You need, a pile of images to train your models and stuff, but you don't need like 1,000 images of stuff. You need a couple.
No, you
And
can always
it,
you can definitely start small, right? You need, half a dozen
yeah,
images or so and you're off and running. The
yeah, totally.
important thing is with this, you need images that are positive, images that are negative, and
Right.
images that are just irrelevant, right? Because
Yes,
otherwise
that's
it's going to
right.
try and say, right? Otherwise it's going to try and say, well, it's a positive or negative. That's all I know about, right? If you have to
Right.
give it that third option of, in this case, a third option of, I just don't
Right.
know.
Yeah. So like when I was doing the horses, I had to throw pictures of like dogs, cows into there. Otherwise, like it wouldn't know, right? It would
Right.
say, well, I think it's a cow. I mean, I think it's a horse, but I'm not really sure, right? What I wanted to do is I wanted it to say, no, I recognize this as a different kind of animal that someone might confuse with I don't know who would confuse a cow with a horse, but it was the concept. You have to
Mm-hmm.
provide it different kinds of information, right? Probably all kinds of stuff. So yeah, really cool stuff. I'm glad you brought this up. Congrats to Microsoft on another cool use for their technology. Really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It
You're scrolling
combines
here. Is there
two.
something else?
No, no, no. Actually, I'm not sharing that anymore. So,
Oh, I'm seeing it on my
sorry.
screen. I'm sorry, you're not sharing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Um,
That was so for me. It's actually cool because it's two of some of my favorite things, right? Cognitive services and space, because I'm a space junkie as well. So that's those. I think
yeah,
it's just awesome story.
that's really cool. Okay, so here we are, Wednesday night. We're getting ready to do the show. Here we are. We're all excited. We're going to be talking about. We thought we were going to talk about bicep, which is a cool topic. And we had a guest coming on the show, our friend Brian Manisi, who's been on the show before. He's a good guest,
Yep.
but
Not that
apparently
long
there
ago,
was a
actually.
little bit of a mix-up. What's that?
He was actually been on not that long ago.
Yeah, maybe I don't know if it was. It was must be more than a month, but not that long. Maybe 5 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks. I don't
Certainly this
know.
year.
Yeah, it was this year, right? So anyway, we had a little bit of a communication mix-up with Brian, and and honestly, I thought, we could talk about bicep. I've played around with it a little bit, but he's the guy on this topic, right? He knows the stuff. He's used it a lot more than I've used it. I don't know about you, Rich, but he's used it a lot, and we figured let's save that show for him. And instead of me screwing it up, we can get him come on and really do the show well. And I'll admit, we did kind of scramble for a topic like, well, what are we going to talk about on tonight's show? And I just came up with this idea, sort of off the fly here. Like, what if we talk about Azure SQL and Azure Data Studio? Because um, I think there's some value in sort of talking about what might seem like the base. Certainly with Azure SQL, it might seem like that's the basics of Azure. But there's plenty of people who haven't used Azure SQL yet. I'm no expert on it, but I thought we could talk about it a little bit. And a tool that I really like is Azure Data Studio. And I think that I know plenty of people that use Azure SQL, that they use it through they use it through like SQL Server Management Studio or through Visual Studio. There's a lot of ways to get to even uh, through VS Code and all. There's a lot of ways to get to SQL in Azure. But I think Azure Data Studio is a really cool tool. And I probably don't have any like, like, well, let's take a look at the tool and see what's going on there,
Okay.
and play around with Azure SQL a little bit through Azure, through Azure Data Studio, right? I'm going to mix up some of those words a lot because there's a lot of Azure in that mix. And of course, our friends that are watching live, if this is stuff you've played around with, feel free to chime in, throw in some tips. If you guys have questions, we can try to address those. And why don't we take a look at Azure Data Studio? Rich, give me a sec. Let me get my
Yeah.
screen set up here. I think
I
I'm going to go
should have had some
here.
give me a sec music lined up.
Oh yeah, right. Do 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 do. So what do I got here? I got a couple windows open that I don't want to have, and let's put this up here. You know what? I'm going to put this over here, and yeah, why not? You can go for it. Let's try
So you
this.
got to share because
Oh,
I
I got to
took that
share.
away
Yeah, I
when
do
I
have to
showed that
share, don't
article.
I? It's not
Yep.
magic, is it? No.
It's close.
It's close. So, oh, and I got to hit the start share button. Okay.
Awesome. There we go.
And
This.
what's that?
Nope, you're good. I'm
All right, we're good.
narrating as we do it.
Narrating as we do it. Yeah, yeah. So here's my screen with Azure Data Studio. Azure Data Studio is, I guess, to get it really simple here. Let's go back to a browser window. Hang on one sec. You can keep it sharing. I'm just going to say, let's just go to another Edge window, bring it over here, and say, Azure Data Studio. Okay, Azure. I got to be able to type. Azure Data Studio, and you can see it came up because I just searched for it. Download and install Azure Data Studio. Simple as that, right? I went over here. I've used this before, but this is what I did, on this machine right now. Download and install Azure Data Studio. Clicked Windows User Installer, but look, they got Mac, they got Linux, and honestly, you click Run. Like this was a no-brainer. I don't even think it asked me any questions. Maybe where do I want to install it, and do I want a desktop icon? The real vanilla install, nothing fancy going on here. Um, and that's it. Right now, I've got Azure Data Studio, and I've used it before. I'm no expert with it, but it's pretty basic, right? We have menu over here just to give us a little bit of a tour. I can see, a bunch of servers and connections. I've got a search area here. I've got notebooks, right? So we can use Jupyter notebooks right here in Azure Data Studio. I've got an Explorer, look at this source control linked into this. And I don't know that I've tried that. We could play around with that. That might be kind of interesting. And of course, I've got extensions, right? So that's interesting. Um, Look at this. I will tell you that I have not installed any extensions on here, but I can install the Azure CLI, SQL migration. There's a lot of stuff that seems like it could be pretty helpful. Look, they've even got stuff like Redgate SQL prompt, third-party stuff in here. It's like a first-class citizen, right? PowerShell's in here, all kinds of stuff. Maybe we'll come back and take a peek at that. Um, I've got accounts, and it looks like I'm not in here, so I'm going to do that. And I've got some settings in here. Well, let's close this for now. And we're just going to poke around in here, and there's a bunch of settings and stuff like that. Settings, extensions, colors, you know, all the some usual goodness stuff. So I could come in here right off the bat and do new connection, but I think it might make sense if I come over here and add an account. And what it's doing is, I'm going to move this to another screen just in case, but actually this probably doesn't even matter. I'm going to say no. I like the account that I'm in. That's as my, yeah, oh well, you saw my email. I'm signed in. Let's leave this on. So nice, no touch, right? I didn't even have to do passwords or anything because I'm using my Microsoft account. I like that. I like that kind of stuff. My email was shown. It's no secret. That's my email address, right? I don't really care. Um, so that's a cool experience again, right off the bat. Like, okay, I'm digging this. Okay, let's close the page here. And let's go back to Azure Data Studio, and there it is, right? It's weird that it shows it twice. I don't know what that means. Maybe I can have a friendly name in front of that or something like that. Who knows? All right, so now here I am. So there's a bunch of ways we could do this. I was originally planning on creating an in Azure. Well, you know what? Let's take a look at Azure because we want to talk about Azure SQL a bit too. So if I go to the portal.azure.com, and again, I'm just going to get passed through, logged in, and this is my lame little playground Azure subscription. So there's not a whole lot of great stuff happening in here, but it's just like, again, it's the playground, right? So there's a few ways to get to SQL stuff in here. The go-to way is under this node, if that's the right word, called Azure SQL. Now, interestingly, there are other things in here too, like SQL databases and SQL Server, right? And you could go to it, but if I'm not mistaken, it sort of says, hey, the preferred way is to use the Azure SQL node like directly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. I don't know if it's that much different, but I remember seeing that in the past. So, and I'm not seeing it here now anyway, but I remember seeing that. And Azure SQL is a good way to start doing. It's right in here. So I can come in here and do create, and maybe this is a good way to start and talk about doing this. So, well, look at this, right? So from an Azure SQL perspective, and maybe this is why they start you here, because there's a few flavors of SQL in Azure, right? And Rich, I don't know if you want to jump in on some of these things, or I can keep going. I know enough about this, but I'm not an expert on this. But I know that there's a few flavors. These are the few that come to my mind. So I'm going to
Right.
start on the right here, and let's do this. Right? Oh, that didn't. Oh, sorry, wrong one. So the first option is a SQL virtual machine.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives you a tip here: best for migrations and applications requiring OS level access. This is lift and shift. Now, this is not my preferred way of doing things. I'm not being negative on it, but we already have Azure. I'm sorry, I already have SQL installed in my data center. It might be great to move those things into the cloud. There are certainly some opportunities and some savings and some features that go along with that. But I'm in the cloud. I want to use the cloud. What I think of as like the sort of the more modern versions of things. But I think there's some really good use cases for when you might need to have Azure and might need to have SQL in a VM running in Azure, right? There's certainly some cases where you might need to do that for a whole bunch of various reasons. Um, I've not really used this, but you can see there's some pretty standard options. And I assume that if I chose this, it's going to pretty much do what it says, which means it's going to give me a virtual machine like right here, like a Windows Server 2022 with SQL Server 2019, and it's going to spin all that stuff up and probably ask me for some credentials, create my credentials. I can only imagine that that's what it's going to do, and I'll have
Right.
SQL running up in Azure. La-di-da, perfect.
Right. But you have SQL running the same way you would as if you had it running on premises, right? In a virtual machine typically,
Exactly. Right.
or if it was running on bare metal, that virtual machine aspect of is the analogous setup that we have here in Azure.
Yeah. And then I own that machine. I need to update that machine. I need to migrate. Look at this. I'm getting SQL Server 19. That seems great, right? But guess what? Next year, who knows when the next version of SQL Server is coming? I don't know. Like you got to maintain it. Um, Now, I do know that there are features where sometimes you need this. And I'm not an expert enough. I know in one case, one of the features that was not in SQL database on Azure, and maybe it is there now, but there were some reasons why you might need some of these other instances. Now, the next option is a managed instance, right? This is kind of interesting too, right? This is, I think, sort of like middle ground, Rich, where I'm not getting a VM, but I'm getting like my own managed instance of SQL Server, but I don't have to now worry about the machine. I've got a full functional a full functional SQL server. Is the way I understand it. And I will tell you that again, maybe I'm wrong about this because they upgrade these things all the time. But one of the features when I started looking into this were things like oh, now I'm blanking out on the name, the link servers. Like on prem we have SQL servers and we have queries that use like a link server where I can query from one server to another. And maybe it's changed by now, but you couldn't do that in the SQL Azure SQL pure. If you wanted to use some of those features, you would get that through like a managed instance. Um, and again, that's old info, but I think there's probably still some other differences where maybe you need the managed instance. Um,
Yeah, so I'll let you finish up the last one. I'll come back to it.
yeah, yeah, sure. So then the last one is this. It's just called SQL databases. I thought it was actually called Azure SQL. I guess they're grouping all these things as Azure SQL now. But the Azure SQL, or what I call Azure SQL, but SQL databases here, best for modern cloud applications. This is just hyperscale and serverless options available. But this is where I just click and say, I need a server, I need a data. Like it's really fast, but it's not SQL Server, right? It's Azure SQL. Am I right
Right.
that there's a difference?
Yeah, definitely. So if you think about that, I just tossed you a link in Skype. Well, if you wouldn't mind
Oh,
pulling that
cool.
up, it's
No,
takes out
no.
to the documentation. But the idea is that what you're doing here is you had those three laid out from the left side, that Azure SQL database. That's kind of
Sorry, I
the
clicked the link and it
most.
popped open, but yeah.
Yep, that's like the most. It's probably the, if you think about it from one aspect of it, it's probably the most restrictive as far as what you can do when you compare it to full on install of SQL.
Yeah.
But it's also
Right.
the less hands on you need to have on it as well, right? Because a lot of
Right.
that is just basically it's part of the platform. It's a platform as a service. You just want to bring your database and use database focused functions and features, and you don't want to have in tie into some of the more server side components that you might have had access to on an install. That's what that's perfect
Right.
for, right? I've just got a simple app, simple database. I can install it there. Maybe there are some things that go beyond that, that I need to access that don't have to get down to the bare metal or the OS of the machine, but there's some little tweaks that I might want to be able to do to the database. That's when you would start looking or to the underlying services itself. That's when you might look at something like managed instance, right? We'll take care of the updates. We'll take care of the underlying OS that runs on top of, but it starts to give additional access beyond what you have in the database. And then all the way on the right, what we look like is full on, hey, I want to own it all because I want to be able to get down and tweak the server at the finite level. That's when you have the
Yeah.
virtual machine component.
Right. Right. Now, and you said, well, the one on the left, is for your, I don't remember the word you used, like, sort of basic. I don't think it's limited towards like I think you can run some pretty big deal databases on there. It's not
Yeah,
just for like proof of concept. Like I don't want let's right. I know you didn't
very
mean to
true.
imply that, right? But just to be clear, like it's a great option. It's so easy to get started with SQL databases in Azure. It's like so simple.
Yep,
Um, but it's like a single database, I guess is the way. It's not the same as having a SQL server, I guess, right?
exactly.
Um, so so actually, come to think about it, but I can create single database elastic pool, which I don't know anything about that. Elastic pool provide a cost-effective solution for managing the performance of multiple databases with variable usage patterns. Um, interesting.
So you might
So if I
have.
do yep,
So if I understand, if I recall this correctly, you have a pool. You're even though it's a SQL database, there is, you know, when you instantiate this in Azure, there's an underlying SQL server that gets created. Just like when you create an app service, right? There's an app service plan that gets created, which is the virtual machine where your app services live, right? That same concept is there on the SQL side. And that database server is going to have some amount of resources. So I could deploy those resources in there. But if I recall right, Elastic Pool gives me the ability to have those databases inside of that database server be able to expand and contract the amount of resources that it takes and needs.
Right. So now, if I hit create on this, and hopefully this is zoomed in okay. I think I'm already zoomed in a little bit, and I can use zoom it as necessary to
Looks
do
good.
more if I need to. Yeah, so bottom line is I can define my subscription, and of course I need a resource group. Now this is interesting. Look, default SQL, I don't remember that before. I guess they'll give me, I guess I have it. Maybe I created that. I don't know. That seems interesting. Default SQL. It seems like something I must have created. I don't think that comes with that, right? Um, I don't know,
I
but I
would
like to
go take a
create
look at it
new.
and see what else is in there.
Oh yeah, I could do that later. But so I'm going to just call this TDTS uh, Azure SQL. Just do something like that. Okay. So I've got a new resource group. Right. Now my database details. All right. So I'm going to create a name. I'm going to call it. Oh, I spelled TDTS wrong. Look at that. Can I change that still? I guess I can do it like that. There we go. TD. Okay. I'm going to call this TDTS demo. Now, okay, so that's allowed. So that's always good. Now, the server, right? So I have some servers on here, but I'm going to create a new one. So what I'd like to figure out is how do you get to the true serverless one? I think is that in a different area? Because it did say there's like true serverless options. So I'm going to create a server now. It has to be a globally unique name, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is probably going to be unique. I'm going to call it.
Those can only be lowercase, by the way.
Oh, right, right. I always forget. Yeah, yeah. This is one of those weird ones where you have to do this. TDTS server, right? Okay, cool. Keep it in the east. Location authentication method, right? I can use SQL authentication. I can only use Azure Active Directory, or I can use both. Why not use both? Let's play around. So I can set an Azure AD admin, right? And I think it's going to give me the choice to pick myself because I'm the only person in this subscription anyway. Will it go by my name? Yeah, there we go. Oh, no, Microsoft account members are not allowed. I remember running into this in the past. So I would need
So,
to create a user in Active Directory to do this.
well, are
I
you
have
in? What subscription are you in?
I'm in my personal
Oh, okay, that's what it's called in the upper right there.
Ingenuity now. Yeah, that's what it's called. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
But I think I have some users that I've created in here before. I'm just looking to see if anything comes up if I scroll through it. Um, I must have had one
Yeah.
from that. This is probably one that I had. It was a primary. I don't remember what the password is. So, Swami Stream. So I do have some accounts, but huh? Why don't
Should
we
we go
just
to
go
AD
back?
and create one real quick for this?
I could. That would be fun. Sure, why not? So Azure Active Directory. I'm gonna keep it like that.
Yep.
So what's interesting, and this is an interesting point, is that I didn't realize at the beginning. I remember even I think I spoke to you about this. I said, hey, in my Azure subscription, I want to do some stuff that needs Active Directory. How do I add Active Directory? Like I need to create like an AD, and I think it was you probably who said, no, you have AD. You might be the only user in it because it's your account, but like that's it. Like Active Directory, it's built into your Azure subscription, right?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. It has to hang off of something.
yeah, it has to hang off of something. I thought like, oh, at work we have Azure Active Directory, but this is just my own little personal playground. Well, no, it's in there. Okay. So it's going to create, and I'm familiar with some of these names, but like it's basically uses this on mic. I don't know if we can, if it'll show it. Yeah. So this, if you've never seen this before, this is my Azure subscription is under my Hotmail account, and it creates this .onmicrosoft.com domain. So now this becomes like a unique domain, right? Is that kind of the way you would say it?
Totally agree. I was going to offer something else up. You know, if you hold the
Oh, yeah.
shift key down, it'll make it a straight line instead of, because we know we can't all draw straight lines with mice.
Oh yeah. Let me see. Wait, hang on. Let's play with that. So you're saying that I was doing this kind of sloppiness. If I hold the shift down, this is a man who's done many demos in front of people. That's cool. That's a
That is
pro
cool.
tip right there. Pro tip. Okay, look what you learn on the Dev Talk Show. You never know what you're going to get. I'm going to do this. Do it at an angle. I'll get a nice. Either way, it's a nice straight line, right?
That's the
I
important
like.
part. It's straight.
Yeah. Um, I need to remember that because I do a lot of stuff where like I'll take screenshots for people, and I assume that works in a lot of things. Like I'm using Zoom it, but I think it's one of those standard things probably that if I'm doing like a screen capture, I can and I want a circle thing, whatever. So that's good.
Isn't that,
All right, so why don't we
sorry,
why don't we call
not the
this
tangent.
yeah, sure, TDTS user, um, or I could even say let's give Rich an account, or I could give myself one, really, Andy. So let's just make it me, okay? And so yeah, I can say Andy Schwam. Uh, oh, I see. This would maybe be my screen name, right?
Hmm.
Type. I could even do that, right? This will probably confuse me. So maybe I'll put Schwami up here because otherwise I'm going to be like, what was the account under, right? Uh, okay. So I got that. Now it's going to ask me for a password. Now look, auto generate password is kind of interesting because how do you, well, maybe it'll send me how will it tell me what my password is?
I
I don't
It's been
know.
a little bit since I've done this, but I believe once you create it, the the notification that says the account's been created will push that back to you, possibly.
Yeah, it has to, right?
Yeah.
Um, So I think I'm going to just let me create a password just because I think it'll be easier, right? And let's see, it's masked. So I'm going to type in a bunch of characters here and I'm going to type in, um, I'm not going to type password one, although I've been thinking about it because this is just a throwaway, but I'm not doing it. Um, all right. It likes it. I think there's a check mark there. Groups. Well, let's just leave this. Okay. I don't think I need any of this stuff. Um, Look at that. Created user Schwami. Kind of interesting. Kind of cool that I have Active
Definitely.
Directory here at my disposal, right? Let's try this again. I'm going to set me as an admin. Now, by the way, um, you can set your Azure AD admin. I think, I don't want to say this because I could be wrong, but I think you can set it to a group. Um, but I might be mixing it up with something else I do. But anyway, let's see what happens if Schwami comes up. Look at that. There's Schwami. Okay.
That's a good feeling.
So that is a good feeling. So I'm in here and oh, I hit OK when I meant to, I forgot that there was more stuff, like I was confused by the scrolling and stuff like that. So we're not going to use Elastic Pool. So here's where I can choose, this is a typical kind of Azure thing, right? Service tiers, right? I'm going to go to the basic tier. Um, and there's like a free tier, but I think you're limited to how many free ones you get. And I'm probably using my free one already. This is going to cost me $5 a month. We're going to remember to delete it at the end of the show, but I've got credits, so I don't think it's a big deal, right? Um, So let's just stick with that. Geo redundant backup storage, I guess that's what it's defaulted to. Selected value for backup storage redundancy is geo. The database backups will geo replicate to the paired region. Okay, sounds good. And it tells me my price, and I'm going to create this. Okay.
Looks good.
So now this is a server. Um, did I create? Oh, I did create a database and a server. So what I'm going to get is both of those in a minute here, and so this doesn't usually take too long. It's creating the server and things like that. Now what we'll end up doing is we're going to come over to here. I'll show a couple things about this, but we're going to come over to here and connect to it and see what you guys all think of Azure Data Studio. I kind of like it. It's super lightweight. It seems like a really easy way. First of all, it's free, right? Now, Rich does not like when I talk about these things. I don't even remember. SQL Server Management Studio is maybe free because it's not like the enterprise SQL Server. I don't even remember, but um, but it feels heavier. I think there's some great features. Like I'm not against, we're not here talking about other things, like, but just easy. While we're waiting, oh look, this is almost done. I see a comment here from Dark Elder. Great hint for people wanting to learn. A cloud guru gives you a fully functioning playground. You can even access this from the outside. Is that a website, a cloud guru? I don't mind Googling it. I trust you, Dark Elder. You're a friend of the show. Look at this, cloudguru.com. I'm game. I'll try out a link. Learn by doing with a cloud guru. Learn faster, move faster. Look at this. Transform now with courses and real hands-on labs in AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and beyond. I love these things that they want me to subscribe. Like I just got here. You know, I always think like, shouldn't you put a timer on that? And if I stick around for a minute or two, now ask me if I want to subscribe, right? That's a pet peeve of mine. So they have an Azure sandbox, says Dark Elder. Um, Now, to be fair, I can do this for free in Azure with the free tier. It's just that I've already used my free tier, right? But likely, if you're coming into this new in an Azure subscription, you're going to have a free one available to you, right? And there's some limits to what you can do with the free things. I don't know. This is kind of cool. I don't know. I'll click through this. I'm always interested in seeing something new. Access your cloud, Azure your cloud success. Azure your cloud success. Okay. View plans. Well, let's see what this is. This might cost
I
me
think what they're
something too.
going
Hold
for,
it. What's that?
I think what they're going for is maybe assure your cloud success.
Oh, assure. Yeah, yeah. Oh, a little play on words there. Assure your
Yeah.
success, right? So there's a free tier. Let's take a look. I don't know. It's maybe a commercial for these people, but whatever. I'll play along. They do have a free tier, unlimited courses and quizzes. Cool. Limited course. It says unlimited courses limited. That's kind of funny, um, but I know what they mean. So yeah, maybe this is a cool option, right? You can get this cheap on sale. Yeah, I'm sure they have some cool stuff. Maybe might be a cool learning thing to look at. There's a lot of like learning platforms out there now. I'm certainly not. Oh, look at this! It's a Pluralsight company. I am a fan of Pluralsight.
Oh yeah.
Um, so look at that. What's that?
Oh, definitely. Me too.
Yeah, um, I use Pluralsight regularly. Right, really great platform. Interesting that they own this as well. Um, Now we have Pluralsight. Yeah, actually, I'll say that at work we have Pluralsight subscriptions, and they have a whole bunch of trainings that's built into that. So I'm wondering if there's a way to tie these things together. Who knows, right? Let's hop back into our thing. My deployment is complete. That was a nice little sidetrack. While my I think it was completed much sooner than that, but here we go. I can go to my resource, and so this is taking me to the database, the SQL database named TDTS demo and it tells me this is the server it's on, right? So it's TDTS server and TDTS demo, right? And look at right off the bat. Here's Power Platform, right? We're going to be talking about that in a couple of weeks. They got some links for Power Platform right in here. But what I love right off the bat is that there's a query editor, right? Now, before we do anything else, we got to talk about this and watch this. If you hit Shift and drag, you get a straight line, okay? I'm going to draw a couple of them because I'm kind of into it now, right? Set
Do you,
server firewall.
do you know about the control?
Oh, wait. Oh, wait. Okay, hang on. If you're saying I can do something with control, oh, come on. Really? That's awesome. That's what I needed more than anything. Never knew that. I've been doing this for many years, and and I might have known it before too. You probably told me, and I probably forgot. But that's awesome. You learned it here.
Mm-hmm.
How many people in the chat? Come on, who knew that? I'm curious. Did you all know that? Am I the only idiot, or did you guys all just learn something cool? Um, anyway, um, one of my favorite parts right in here is the built-in query editor. Now it says preview, and I'm not going to beat up on what that means, but I can tell you that this one's been in preview for a while. I use it all the time, um, and it's I don't know what does preview mean. Whatever. Maybe there's some. Um, by the way, Dark Elder, thank you. Says I learned something new every week. Appreciate that. And our friend Loka says I have a cheat sheet for the shortcut keys. Yeah, I need to keep these reminders like around me. I could fill my whole computer with sticky notes all over the place, right? So here's query editor. Right now, I don't have anything. I don't have a database. Okay, so look at this. So this is interesting. Oh, I know. Sorry, I got off track. I was talking about the set server firewall. And when you create these things, what's really nice about these SQL servers is that they automatically, and maybe I'm not using the right words, Rich, you can correct me, but they automatically, there's a firewall on here with basically IP restriction whitelists kind of thing. And it automatically locks this down. And as an enterprise, as a leader of my organization, right, I like this, okay? Because I don't want to have to think about did people create SQL servers and forget to lock it down or something. I love the fact that this thing is locked down because it does have these are globally unique. This is a link. It's a URL, right? But I can't get to it if my IP address is not in the firewall. I love it, right? So if I go to the query editor, right, right off the bat, it's telling me, remember, I'm not accessing it. You think to yourself, well, wait, no, I'm on Azure. No, but I'm not. I'm in a browser running in my house, right? And I can't access this thing, even though I'm in the UI. Right now, pretty simple. First of all, it shows me my outgoing IP address, and this is probably just the IP address of FiOS. Like you get these. Everybody's probably many people on this call might actually even have the same IP address, which is a little imperfect in some of these scenarios, but that's okay because we still have authentication on our database. So I could go in and add this IP address, and I'm going to copy and paste it, but I don't think it's going to matter because what I also can do is when you go over to here. Oh, so now this is the database, okay, a SQL database. This setting is at the server level, right? So I could have clicked the link in there, or I could hop over to my server over here,
Wait,
right? What?
go ahead. Keep going. Keep going.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. Because usually there's a button. I thought it was, maybe I have it backwards. I thought there's usually a button right. Maybe they changed it. It used to be, I thought, right at the top. More. Oh, let's move. What I do? Am I wrong? I thought it was right at the top here. It would say like add my IP address. Maybe they moved it. It's not at the database level, is it? Am I wrong?
No, it's well, it's at the
Oh, there
it's
it
on
is. Set
the
server
yeah,
firewall. Yeah.
right.
It is. I think it used to be at this, things change a lot, right? So maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like this used to be something where you had to go to the server. Look, because it is the server firewall. When I clicked that, it popped me over to the server firewall settings, right? And I could put rules in here, but it also, there's a button right here that says add client IP. So, and it's even showing me my client IP address again here, but I can simply do this. It populates it for me. I can put a nice rule name in here, Andy's house, right? Whatever, it doesn't matter. Um, and I'm in there, and I can save this, right? You do have to save it. There's some other interesting stuff in here, like the TLS settings, of course, and other stuff. Um, so, and you can put ranges and stuff in here. So this becomes pretty good, and your servers, you can feel. I feel pretty good about the security aspect of it. So great. Back to the query editor. Um, and I've seen this happen before, but I think I'm just going to try one thing just in case. Um, yeah, so so I'm not sure why this is happening, interestingly, because um,
Because you're accessing this as Andy
oh,
at
me,
Hotmail,
right,
not
wrong name.
Shwami.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're right about that. So I would need to now go to the portal as that user. Um,
Yes.
I think, right? So that's
Yep.
interesting, right? So maybe not perfect for this demo, but kind of interesting. We're kind of going down paths that I wasn't even thinking about. Just talking about some interesting stuff from a SQL perspective. So why don't I go to I'll go to like a new incognito window,
Okay.
um, private window, as it's called, right? And go to portal.azure.com. And so what I should be able to do is go to Shwami at, and this odd address. I think it's not at. The at is out. I think it becomes this, if I remember correctly. Um, dot on Microsoft.com. Is that right? I think it might be. Or maybe the dot comes out here. Maybe it's that.
No, no, no. It's yeah. The I think it's just Hotmail, right? It's not .com.
Oh, they take out. I thought they kept that in there. Okay, they take that out. Okay, you're maybe
Yep.
right. Yeah, I mean, you probably are. Um, okay, let's see if that works.
There you
All
go.
right, and um,
Super secret password.
yeah. So if I can remember what it was. Let's see if I remembered my password. Hang on, let me try it again. Um, I got nervous that it wasn't going to work. Now it wants me to update my password. Oh,
First time login.
yeah, first time
So
login. You know what? I'm just going to move this. It just feels like something I shouldn't be doing on this screen here. I know this is just a throwaway. I'm going to delete this thing in a minute, but
while you're doing that, I'll bring in a guest.
what?
Hey, Chris.
Oh, Chris is here. Hey, Chris.
Oh, wait a minute. We can't hear you, man. Why don't we hear Chris?
How about now?
There you go.
Hey, Chris is here. Give me a sec. I'm just typing off screen here.
Cool, cool. Welcome. Everything glad you could join us.
Yeah. Just a little busy, but
It's okay.
glad we have the show, and
Mhm.
just trying to catch up on what we're doing.
So we are.
This is not
You know,
arm. This is not bicep.
it's not.
Right.
The story so far is that Andy has wants is doing a session on Azure SQL and Azure Data Studio. So we've gotten to the point of talking about some of the things we can do in Azure to set up that SQL environment, some of the options, and we just created our database, and he did it in a really cool way where he actually created a specific user in his Azure AD, and we're trying to get that access to our database.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, so the funny thing is, now it thinks I'm brand new to Azure because this account is new, but I'll
Mm-hmm.
take a pass on the tour for now. And I should be able to just go into TDTS, um, and I let's see. Um, Where's Azure SQL? I wonder if this user doesn't have permissions. Let's see. Should.
So that
I feel like,
so that user was just part of your Azure AD. It doesn't
yeah,
have any known. It doesn't have any visibility into your subscription. So when you're signing here, if you go
yeah, that's what I was
into
thinking.
yeah, so you can do that. You can in your other window in your Azure subscription
Yeah, over
here
here,
go
I need to go
to
to what? I'll let you tell me.
subscriptions.
I had an idea, but why don't you tell me what to do because you'll know it first and straight off.
Yeah, so if you go to subscriptions,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Oh, I usually have that at the bottom, but I guess let's do it over here. Subscriptions, and I go to my subscription.
click on
Oh,
your
look,
sub.
thank
Yep,
you. And then I'm going to go over to, I think, access control, right?
you got it. And then we're gonna
And I'll do, oh, sorry, role first. I think I'm just going to do contributor, right?
I would.
For the
Yeah,
purposes of this demo, it's not super fine grained, but I think it'll work. And I'm going to add Swami, right?
yep.
Uh, okay. So interesting, right? Couple steps that are, you know, in some ways like sort of out of scope for the talk, but I think interesting just the same because everything's protected in Azure, right? It's not wide open. Even though I created a user, I never gave them permission as a contributor.
Right.
Um,
But
Even though
just
at the
to
database level they had it. So I wonder, interestingly,
yeah,
I probably could have connected from Azure Data Studio as that user because I
yes.
wasn't using the portal, right? But still interesting, right? And I like where we're going with this. So let me get back to, I think it's this window here. So I'll just refresh. Um, yeah, whatever. Um, well, who knows what's going on here? Access denied. I wonder if I had to log out and log back in.
For this account, most likely, yeah.
F5.
I
Let's
would
try
say do
that. Let's
that.
try Control F5 first. Look at that.
Yeah.
Control F5 definitely worked. I've got access to all the resources in here because I made the user a contributor. And if I go to, oh no, sorry, TDTS, this right here, right? That's our database we just created. Now I can go to the query editor and I should get, look at that. Yeah, so I've seen this before, right? So you have to accept these certificates. As soon as it started connecting, it knew that I need to do this, right? Do I have to click them?
I think just hit
Select a
OK.
certificate? Yeah, I guess it's that. I don't know if it matters which one I picked. And there we go. So now I can continue with Active Directory authentication, which is really cool, right? And here I am. And now, of course, there's no tables, there's no nothing, but I'm in here and I've got a query editor, right? I've got some features here. I've got like a tree where I can look at tables and stuff like that. I can look at stored procs even, and I've got a query editor. And I could do things in here, but I think we're going to try to do things from the other side. Um, of Azure Data Studio. But there's a bunch of stuff in here, right? Performance, like a lot of the typical Azure services that we have. But let's take a look over here. And now I'm in Azure Data Studio. So now I'm connected. This is interesting because I'm connected as Swami, but Swami is not an. It wouldn't let me make my Microsoft account an admin. But I wonder if it'll let me make it a user because technically I can't connect from this. I didn't give myself permission on the database. You know what I mean?
Yeah, your Hotmail account did not get permission on the database, but your Swami account did.
Yeah, but can I go over to well, to add a okay, you know what? It gets kind of weird because I would need to write a script. One thing you can't do. So here's an example. We were talking about like, as far as I know, with Azure Data Studio, if I was in SQL Server Management Studio, I could click on the database node, the server node, and I get those options in there that says like, what is it, security? I think it's called. Like, and there's a whole bunch of things, and you can go to users, you can add users and stuff like that. And unless it's been added, that kind of stuff doesn't really exist in Azure Data Studio. I would have to write a little small script to say add user. It's not the end of the world, right? Maybe there's
Right.
snippets, all right? I don't know. But so I think what I will do is I will go to accounts and can I add another account? Look at that. Let's add a second account into here. Uh, hmm. It's going to this browser. That's where things get a little weird, right? I wonder if if I'm in this browser now, this incognito browser, and then I click the button, will it go to this browser by default? Um, because that account, I mean, I want to be able to type in my new username and password. So let's just see if I can trick it into doing that. No, it still wants to come here. So I guess I can do this and then just use another account. Yeah, I don't know why I wasn't thinking about that. So who remembers what it is? Swami at Andy S7 right? Dot on Microsoft.com.
Yep.
Next. Oh, how did it know that? I think it's going to be wrong, but let's just find out. Yeah, I knew that wasn't right. All right, I'm going to put that over here for a sec just in case and say, you know what I have to be really careful to do when I'm doing a demo and I'm putting in my type password and I'm in this talking mode. I've had times where I've almost said my password like as I'm typing it, like A B C, because I can't type.
Can't talk and type.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, right? I think it's working. Okay, here we go. Okay, your account was added successfully. Not now. I don't think this account's gonna be that long enough. And now I've got that in here. So I don't know. I think I might have to click it or something like that to choose the account. So now let's go into Azure Data Studio and let's create a new connection. And
We should call the server.
What's that? Well, yeah, but I thought I could do it. It wouldn't give me a list if I. Well, that's going to be with MFA. Yeah, I thought if I did that, it would query. Oh, it's still SQL. Yeah, it's not giving me like any. Oh, it's also on the wrong account. Wait, hang on. Swami. Okay, I don't think it. Let's just take a peek. This is where I get into trouble, right? Like, what do they call the server? TDTS demo. No, TDTS server, right?
I would go back to overview on that page.
Hang on. Let's just see if this works. You'd go back to what?
If you go back to that next,
This one here. Yeah, right. Well, you want to
or
go back
wherever
to
you,
SQL?
yes. And if you click that in the overview section at the top,
Yep.
it tells you the connection strings or the server name
Yeah.
too, right? Got that there.
Yeah. But the server name was what I had, TDTS server.
.database.windows.net, right?
Oh, yeah, I need to be the full name is what you're saying. Okay. Thank you. These are
Mhm.
those little things that like I have them set up, and I use them all the time, but yeah, I need the strong name, right? Because it needs to know. Like I didn't tell it was in Azure, right? I just put in the name of a server. Think about that. TDTS server. Where the heck's that, right?
That could be on-prem.
It could be on. So now if I do that, I'm hoping now it
I think that's in
loads.
there twice, dude.
Oh, yeah, how about that? Thanks. With us? How's it going, Chris?
It's going. I was looking up some stuff while you
Look at
were
that.
doing that
Yeah. Look,
because
so here's my
I
database.
I
So here's my
yeah.
server. Yep. Here's my database. So I got my server, I got my database. Server group, I don't even know if I need that because I don't know what that is.
I don't think you
So
defined that. So
yeah. So now I'm in this, for some reason I'm in the notebook tab. Maybe that's where I left off once before. Um, so here's my server. And of course there are no tables. There's nothing in here, right? We don't really have anything yet. Let's close this. Okay. So, um, because I'm lazy and I didn't really want to type things, and it usually works out bad when we try typing stuff. I was actually just looking at, like there's a, quick start, create an Azure SQL database, fine, right? So I'm just gonna create. Where was it? I skipped a script. There's a script. Oh, this is the thing. Create the database. No, I thought there's a script here to create a database somewhere. I mean, create tables. Oh, am I scrolling too fast? Query the database. Oh, I must have skipped something. Wait, maybe it's on a different tab. There's this tab here. Okay, here. Yeah, let's create tutorial database. Okay, so I can go into here. Sorry, I had the wrong tab. I knew there was like a tutorial. So now I can just right click on this and do new query, right? And it's going to create a tutorial DB. That sounds like a good. Uh, oh, actually, I have a database. Sorry, I need a table. I'm gonna try this
I was
differently.
I was gonna say I would have expected that to fail because you're in the database saying create me a new database.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, well, this was also from the demo, and it's going to check to see if I have a customers table, and then it's going to create one, right? So this should work. Okay. So now I should have, I probably need to do like a refresh or something like that. Look at that. Now I've got a customers table, and again, I can look at stuff. Oh, look. Remember when I said there's no security? Did they add? This wasn't there in the past. I don't think you could get to this before. Well, who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I did it wrong in the past, but, or maybe you can see it, but you can't add it. Like, oh, okay. See, like there's no add user. Remember I was saying that before? Like in Management Studio, you have a whole bunch of stuff that allows you to like do things. I think though you can kind of cheat and just do like create as a script and probably just change the name and stuff like that. Right? There's certainly ways to create users. But anyway, okay, so I've got my I've got my table, right? Now here I am in Azure Data Studio. I can go down to, well, let's see, where am I? I can create a new query, right? Say select star from, and I think I can sort of get a little help like that. And I think it's called customers or something like that. Going to the right. I just want to see something. Oh, DBO. Do I need DBO?
Yeah. Well, I think it's just DBO. You don't need the TDTS part because you're already in that connection with that
Yeah,
dropdown.
yeah, right. I was hoping if I did that, it would start to prompt me. Customers. Customers?
Yep.
Thought it was singular. It is plural, right?
IntelliSense doesn't lie.
No. And so I'm querying it, right? Like kind of simple. Like we're not here to do a SQL presentation of like how to do SQL, but I've got this in here, right? And you can save, queries. So I can save this. Where do I save this thing? Where do I save this? Is it a button here? Am I missing something? You can also change connections here, right? If I have multiple connections, things like that, disconnect, run, cancel, explain. Look, there's explain here. So I can get like a plan, right? Now,
Nice.
again, I could be wrong, but I don't remember even seeing that stuff in the past. So there, and I wouldn't be surprised if I'm right. Like they were adding stuff all the time. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do over here. But what I don't remember is how to save the query. It was saved file. Save. Is that going to save my query? Look at that. That's
Yep.
my query right there. It's typical. It's like kind of standard Windows application, right? Like I thought it would be here, but since it's the selected query, I assume that that's what it's going to do, right? So I can just save that again, and I don't know where it's going to put it. I never do this, but I'll stick it up. Oh, look, Jackbox. You guys ever play Jackbox? Jackbox is fun. You ever play that?
No.
Yeah, I have.
About
It's
that.
a
Have, right,
fun
Chris?
group thing. Yeah, I have.
Oh my God. So Jackbox is like online party game kind of thing. Well, it doesn't have to be online. You could just do it on your TV, but it got really popular during COVID. With Jackbox TV, you can run these fun like sort of trivia games or like word game. There's a whole bunch of different stuff you do. I don't, maybe it's trivia games isn't probably the right thing. And what you can do is you can play. Everyone uses their phone, and everyone connects up to the server, and you can enter the game through your phone, right? And so we did it during COVID with like family in different anywhere in the world, and you can play these fun like games together, like you're sitting in a room with them. But I'm doing a poor job of explaining it. It's fun.
It's pretty cool though.
Uh, it is fun. Big sidetrack on that topic there. I should have zoomed this. This is pretty hard to read. Holy moly. Looking at the zoom and control scroll doesn't do anything in here. Is there a zoom function on this?
Probably under view.
View?
Control
Just
Plus, just like Visual Studio, right?
control plus.
I'm sorry, just like Visual Studio Code. I mean,
Yep. Yeah. But he's even located. There was a view appearance just like there is in code too.
Yeah, and by the way, Chris just said Visual Studio Code, right? Does this kind of look familiar?
yep, it does.
Like, are they using the same sort of shell, or are they just trying to keep things consistent? Maybe I don't know, but very similar, right? Um, so okay, so I could also come in here and open a query, right? So if I wanted to get that query back, I could come back and get it out of here. Here's my whatever kind of junk is in that thing, blah blah blah. You can get the query back. I've saved my queries, and I can do all kinds of stuff in here, and it's a great lightweight, um, SQL experience. I don't know what else to say about it. Chris, do you ever use I know you kind of joined in late here. Do you ever use Azure Data Studio?
I have. Um, I am still kind of feeling out like a transition from the old classic. I say old SQL Server Management Studio, which is still a workhorse,
True.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm with you that I believe that there has been feature creep in Azure Data Studio to slowly add things that I remember running back to SQL Server Management Studio for. Um, but this has been a long process. I mean, remember, I don't even want to think about how many years ago uh, SQL Server in Azure was kind of in its infancy, and then slowly but surely it kind of got to the point where you said, "I'm just going to use this here. Like, what do I even want the on-prem one for anymore?" Depending on your use case, of course. It even began to feel like I could use my same tools in both. I'm no longer rushing to a specialized tool for what's in the cloud versus what's quote unquote on prem. So I am still kind of moving between them. I can think of places where or times where I'm using one and other times where I'm using another, and I don't even I can't even tell you that there's like a reason. I think it's just a little bit of, well, this is where I've always done this in this particular project. So,
Yeah. Yeah, habit, right? And there's nothing
right,
wrong with that. I mean, it
right.
works. But I love the fact that this is like lightweight. I mean, it opens up, look at these split. And look at this, Chris. I've never done this
Here's the
before, but
thing,
look at
far
this.
easier
There's
to
all these
extend, right?
extensions in here.
Yes,
So I wonder,
far easier to extend than SSMS probably will be at this point, I guess. So that's the real win here, I think, is we're seeing more and
yeah.
more extensions built here that are actually crazy valuable, and you can write your own. And um
I mean, what is this? I'm just curious. Like right here, I clicked on this admin pack for SQL Server, collection of popular database admin extensions. So it's a collection of extensions. It's a pack, right? And it includes these things. So I'm just curious to go into the details. Like, what do I get out of the SQL Server DAC pack extension? Data Tier Application Wizard provides easy to use experience to deploy and extract DAC pack files, right? Which again, you can do through SQL Server Management Studio, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong. And maybe you couldn't do it here, but boom, extension, right? I'm looking to see if there anything that we want to just plug in and use. Like, is there a cool, does it come with anything installed? No. SQL Server Agent, SQL Server DAC pack, SQL Server Import. Look at this. Here's something interesting. All right, like somebody wrote something that allows you to right click. I think because it said context menu, so you can right click on a table and add. That's cool, right? Azure Data CLI. So right at the top, you see like there's things like. So what happens if I add in Azure CLI? Does that mean I'm going to get like a new tab on here, or I can get like the CLI? Like I'm going to add this because why not? Okay, so I did that.
So does that,
That
if,
means our data.
oh, there you go.
Sure, why not? I don't know what that means, but whatever. I trust these extensions. So I'm wondering if this means I'm going to get like a window down below because I don't think I have like command in here now, but I would need. Well, this is it right here, I guess, right? Now I didn't even notice. So you know what? I didn't even notice that this is kind of confusing me because I didn't realize this is a split screen here. I thought this was part of this page. You know, I mean, I didn't notice the contrast wasn't that strong, and I thought it was part of this page, like a sample. But I didn't even notice that we had terminal here, right?
Yeah.
And command palette. So this is, hold it. You know, we were talking about like the similarities between this and VS Code, right? Look at this command palette, right? And then there's terminal, right? So that's why I installed the extension now, because now I'm getting this, right? I'm going to get these. I'm going to get the, I can do all this stuff in here, right? Now that the CLI is installed, I assume I can use like the terminal, right? To do stuff, and that's, let's see what this says up here. This is, I did not even realize like I use this thing for this stuff a lot, right? Um, for queries, for looking at tables and stuff like that. Not even realizing that I had a terminal here. You know, like there's a lot going on, I guess was what I'm saying. Like I wonder what I can do from the command palette. Like I just wasn't sure. Isn't it usually with command palette you add like certain prefixes and it would do certain things? I'm not like a great command palette. Chris, you're much more command palette guy than I am, aren't you? But like,
Well, so in Visual Studio Code, yes, I like using the command palette now. So I'm not as, I think what happens here is so Azure Data Studio, um, you know, besides what you're doing, treating it kind of like, or using it in place of what we traditionally use SQL Server Management Studio for, um, you know, you can also manage other Azure. I don't even really want to say Azure other data products. Like I think you can connect to something like a storage container. I think you can add Azure accounts and kind of link up to them.
well, that's
But I'm
interesting.
not.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's Azure Storage Explorer, which I use for Azure
Yep.
storage accounts,
Right.
but can you add that here too?
I
Maybe
think
it
that
would
you
seem like
can.
one place would. What's that?
I believe that you can.
It would seem
If you
like,
went down to the Azure, one place where you could look is over on the left where you have connections. Um,
yeah.
I
Sorry,
think
this is
you know
closing.
the servers kind of portion of that is taking up most of your real estate. But if you
Yeah,
open
yeah, yeah.
Azure,
Right.
I
Forget
think
that
you
this
can
stuff's
start.
down here.
I think you can start
Yeah.
drilling in down there and saying, "Hey, I want to start looking at my." And I don't know that if you have a storage container that we could look at. Um, and if you did,
I'm
then
not
I think
sure.
we would. Yeah, see, I think we would eventually find it here.
Look at
So
this.
I hear you. Like here's a whole other
But no, but
way
see,
to.
you don't see storage, right? These are really the SQL offerings, right? SQL database, SQL Server, database for Postgres, uh, Data Explorer cluster. I don't know what that is. Yeah, I don't have anything like that. So I don't see. I don't think that they're bringing that together into one tool. Although it sure would make sense, wouldn't it?
I think that if you can't do it there, you can do it from extensions that I don't even think are third party. I think that basically you
Yeah,
like
sure.
I'm pretty sure it's all there. I mean, you know, like I said, I just
Um,
don't have it all memorized right now. But
yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't see. I don't see it as an extension, right? When I type in storage, but blob or something like that. Yeah.
I know that Azure Data Studio supports. I believe it supports some form of Jupyter notebooks, which we've talked about on this show before.
Yes, that's this right here. Yep. So
Yeah.
there's some Jupyter note, and we didn't even get into that. I mean, I mentioned it that it's there because that's a whole other topic,
Yep.
right? Um, but yeah, it's right here, right? And then search. This is just to search files that are open, assuming you would have like Explorer, right, with a whole bunch of queries in, which I don't really have. But I mean, I guess I could just do this and it'll show them. If you want to save the changes, no, I don't think I care about that. So now I just did that open folder thing. Yes, I do trust the authors. This is where I saved that query. So I'm curious to see what happens when I go. Yeah, so it's showing whatever silly things are on my whatever files are there. It doesn't care that they're SQL files, right? These are just a couple of whatever files happen to be on my desktop, but this is the query we just created, SQL query 2, right? So I guess that I can do, if I close this, I can do select. And look at that. See, I searched my open files, right? So I've got files, um, all the kind of stuff that you would expect to have, like create new files and stuff like that here. Um, so that guy Akashi or if I'm saying that right, um, is saying is MySQL and SQL whole different things, and so I'm gonna I'm gonna try to answer that, and then you guys can jump in and my answer to that is that there's SQL and then there's SQL Server. So SQL, right, is a query language that you can use to query databases, right? And databases live on servers, right? So the server is like a platform that hosts it. And in our case, we're talking about Azure SQL, and we're talking about Microsoft SQL Server, like those kind of things. MySQL is, I guess you would say, a different brand, if that's a good word to use, of
Different
SQL,
product.
which is very common, right? And free, and I think free, right? And used in a lot of places. And it's probably come a long way. I don't think of it as like an enterprise scale SQL implementation, although I think it's probably pretty good. I think a lot of people use it for a lot of stuff. Um, so that's my answer. Chris or Rich, do you want to jump in and talk about that at all?
Send your comments to Shwami at
What?
Andy7893hotmail.onmicrosoft.com. You made comments on you didn't think MySQL is an enterprise database. So I'm just saying if you have
Oh yeah.
comments, send them to Andy.
Right. Yeah,
those of
yeah,
you,
right.
those of you who work
Yeah,
with MySQL, please send your
Right.
email.
yeah. I mean,
No, I
I
mean, look,
think it's
SQL
being really
Server.
used. It didn't start out that way, but I think these days it's used for a lot of big stuff, right?
It is.
Well, it's part of what's called known as the LAMP stack, right? Well, it depends on what you decide to make the M stand for. Some people use
Don't
it.
go too far. Let's stick to
Some
the
people,
question,
right?
right?
But SQL Server is a product.
Yeah.
It's a product. It's a Microsoft product, and
Right.
so it is Microsoft's probably flagship on premise. The thing you installed on server somewhere. Um, Relational database. And yes, T-SQL is the language used uh, by SQL Server, and there's other RDBMSs, right? There is MySQL is another one. So you would install MySQL somewhere, and now you have a server that's MySQL based. But there's others. And what's interesting now
Postgres.
that we're talking
Yeah.
about Azure Data Studio, to bring it back to that, is we were talking about SQL Server Management Studio, which is like the solution that folks like us used for many many years. Well, did you know that in Azure Data Studio you could hook up to an Oracle database, and that's another product, right? Oracle is another RDBMS used in enterprise, like you said. So let's say many of us live in. I mean, I don't particularly, but a lot of people do work in a shop with lots of different databases. Like, what tool is a one-stop shop where you can manage your SQL servers, manage your Oracle servers, manage your Postgres SQL servers, which is also supported. I don't know if MySQL is supported natively, but I wouldn't be shocked if there's an extension. I'm not saying there is. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised. So I guess to answer the question from chat is MySQL is a product. It's a server. SQL Server is a server. They have differences. I
Yeah.
don't believe MySQL uses the same flavor, what we would call the flavor of SQL, T-SQL, Transact SQL, right?
Yeah, so that right. So I'm actually on my screen here. I'm putting up like a little example. Like SQL is a language, structured
Yeah,
query language, and
right.
it tends to look something like this. It's like select star, which means select all columns from this table, where some clause, or I'm saying where name is Andy, right? And it probably should be single quotes or something like that for SQL, right? So now then there's T-SQL, and T-SQL is, wouldn't you say it's sort of like a superset? Is that the right word? Like SQL is pretty standard, this part, right?
You mean
But then
ANSI
T-SQL
SQL?
adds, what's that?
So once upon a time there was ANSI SQL when the universe was trying to standardize SQL. Um, I think in the modern times, that's sort of given way to Microsoft's flavor here, T-SQL, which I'm going to be a little unfair and say I think it's mostly a Microsoft used standard because Oracle has one. And remember how we talked about Snowflake on this show?
Yeah,
Snowflake SQL is very influenced by Oracle's, but yet they've even gone further and done some things that probably those folks said, man, we wish SQL had this. And so they kind of added it in. And MySQL has a flavor that I don't know what the similarities are. So they're not, the language, to your point, Andy, has some tweaks from server to server. But what you just showed there is pretty straightforward. You can just go just about anywhere and a query can look just the way you showed it. Select
yeah,
star. We tend to say star for the asterisk in SQL. I feel like most of us in SQL land will say that. Select star from users where name equals Andy.
Mhm.
You want all the rows. You want all the columns from all the rows where the name column happens to be Andy.
yeah. So I don't know if you saw, but our commenter, that guy Kashi, says, even though I only understand about 45% of what you said, thanks a lot. Haha. Well, we appreciate that. Just started learning how to implement MySQL to a game script I'm working on using Pawn language. Now, I've never heard of Pawn language, but I'm saying good for
That's
you,
awesome. Yeah,
right?
that's awesome.
Welcome to
Definitely.
programming, and you're writing a game, and now you're dabbling in SQL and stuff like that, and good for you. That's awesome, right? Um, there's a lot of ways to do a lot of things. I would say that, and um, I thought that this the sort of flavor of the way you query MySQL is like almost identical to like
It's very,
what we
oh
would
yeah,
do
it's real
with,
similar.
yeah.
There's one difference
PL
that I
SQL
know
is
of.
different than, so I think where the big difference is, I thought where the big difference come in, like T SQL and PL SQL have different ways of doing things like cursors, and like I'm trying to think of sort of like more advanced stuff, like
I
a
think that they
query with
deal
a
with,
join.
yeah,
What's that?
I think they deal with dates slightly differently.
Well, that's
Mhm.
true, but I'm saying that like where I think the real differences also come into like cursors, or what about things like what do you call that? The like create table. There's a name for this stuff. Like when you're working with the objects, like creating
Mhm.
tables, creating columns. Like this, the way you would write this statement might be different in these different flavors of a language. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yep.
Yep, absolutely.
So some languages,
There's a
and
name
again, I'm
for
not going
that.
to remember which ones, but when we, like I said, we talked about Snowflake on this show one time, and Snowflake has a construct where you can say create or alter, which is basically kind of like in our world, we would often say a if not exists. So they
Mm-hmm.
sort of
Yep.
say like, they sort of have similar syntax, but it's not quite the same, but it's accomplishing the same goal. It's like, create if it's there. And if it's not there, then make it look like this. Oh, I think I
Yeah,
said
it's
that
cool.
backwards. Create it if it's not there. And if it is there, then make it look like this. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. That's sort of like the upsert
It's kind of
command,
like it, right? Yeah. And so,
which is a
but
cool
you don't
thing.
have to get hung up on the differences. To the point of
Right.
the question from that guy Akashi, right? Is it sounds to me like what is being said here is working on a game and using pawn, and I want to start saving stuff somewhere so that I can go get it in the next game, or maybe keep like a high score table. I don't know. And MySQL is going to be a vehicle for that. There's a database where stuff can be saved for future querying, and that sounds fantastic. And that sounds to me like the right thing to be working towards, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, in the true spirit of the Dev Talk Show, I've never shied away from going off on a tangent, right? So I'll throw this out there, Chris. You're our resident game expert, and I don't want to put you on the spot. The pawn language, something you've heard of before?
I haven't,
Oh, okay. I
but
thought
I'm
usually you're going to
interested.
come in and yeah. Well, I googled it. I don't know. I just googled it, and I got this CompuPhase. I don't know. Is this a pawn? Pawn is a simple, typeless 32-bit extension language with a C-like syntax. A pawn source program is compiled to a binary file for optimal execution speed. Um, Oh, and you're using my. I'm just reading the comment. MySQL to save stats. Right. Okay. Sure. When the game things happen in the game, you need to save stuff somewhere, and why not use MySQL for that, right? Um, Execution speed, stability, simplicity, and a small footprint were essential criteria. So, yeah, I don't know if this is their official site. It's the first thing that came up. I don't know what CompuPhase is. I wonder if there's like a.
Well, so the interesting thing is this might be an overloaded name. um Pawn might be also a language that's used in a larger game engine, like, because I'm seeing it
Yeah.
included in some other resources that I'm looking at here. um
Yeah. I
One
know what you're
example I
saying.
can give you is there for a long time. In fact, several game engines will embed Lua as kind of like a scripting language, so that way what you do is you build this game engine, and the game engine is kind of generic, and then you have your level designers use a scripting language to kind of fine tune the level to say, well, the enemies start here, they have these behaviors and stuff, so that way you're not hard coding, all this stuff into your game engine. So this is where I saw Pawn as well, and maybe this is what, um maybe this is what we're talking about, but it's not something that I've used. But the game development world is huge,
Yeah. Cool.
so you can't know everything. It's just interesting. Like, for example, this particular blog
Wow.
post here, like you're saying, is like the quickest and lightest scripting language I've seen. Using it for low level scripting in my game. That sounds cool.
Yeah, and that last comment. So from the last comment on the screen from that guy is Kashi Renderware
Mm,
game engine.
okay.
It works well with that. So yeah, cool. Maybe that'll be a show one day. Maybe that guy Akashi is going to come back one day, be a guest on our show, and show us how the Renderware game engine works. I mean, who knows, right? That would be. Wouldn't that be cool, right? um, there's all kinds of ways to program and stuff like that. It's there's so much that we can do, but let's bring it back a little bit. Um, so we've discovered all kinds of stuff, extensions. Um, we've discovered, Chris, you were. This was a good thing that you pointed out that when you go to connections, I was looking at servers before, but there is this whole Azure section, right?
Yep.
Where, and I think, see, I did a connection, I did a server connection, but being that I'm logged in here, right?
Hmm.
What if I've been in here too long? Would it have been easier for me to just come in here and gone right to this, you know? Oh yeah, that's true. I connected it. Yeah, that we kind of expect. I should have expected that. That's because I was on the Andy Schwam account, not the Schwami account. Um, so yeah, so I could come in here and go right to this. right? So I don't even need this section here. So even easier, right? I get access to all my databases right in here. Um, and, um, all kinds of stuff. But like I was saying, you still look at this. Also open an Azure portal. There's a lot going on in here. Now, I was saying, we don't have a way to do a user, but I could do this. Script is create, right? And then I could change this and I could just add. Now, let's see how much I can remember. I want to add my account into this because I'm not a user in this database. That's why it failed. Because Swami is a user, but Andy S987, my regular account, is actually not. I think there's a way to do it where you say something like create user, something about from provider or something like that is the word. Does that sound familiar to you guys? Create user from external provider. Yeah, here's look this. I think I need to do something like this. Create user Controso Fritz. Boy, don't you get the impression that whoever wrote this was thinking about our friend Jeff Fritz? How many Fritzes are there in the Microsoft world? Maybe there's a bunch, but wouldn't that, So this is what I was looking for here. You do, where is it? God, there's a lot of stuff in here. This thing, create user. I wonder if I can do this for my, and this is going to be my Andy S987.com. Will that work? Let's just see. It doesn't like that. I don't know. There's a way to do something like this, I think. Anyway, because maybe it's just this. I don't know. I'm kind of going off on it. I shouldn't do this. Like winging it on, like totally winging it on stuff that I don't remember. Yes, it's not there. There's a way to do something like that where I've done this where you can add your users in here pretty easily from scripts. It's just SQL stuff. But I like this Azure thing. And then there's this whole big data clusters, which I guess that's a whole other
Right. I
area.
think is that like the Azure Synapse support?
I guess it is.
Maybe.
Because it mentioned Synapse somewhere here too when we were on, maybe it was connections or something like that. There was a way to, I don't know. What's new deployment? Hey, let's see what that is. SQL Server on Windows. So what would this be? Create a SQL database server, or elastic pool. So this is where we were at the beginning of the show. We did it in the portal. Okay, let's do this again. I'm going to go back just for clarity. I like to clear things off. So I went to here and said connections, new deployment. And I can go here, and this gives me the feeling, what are we going to do here? Deployment prerequisites. I'm winging it here. I hope that's okay. Very similar choice that we had earlier when we did this on the Azure portal. I'll accept the terms of use. Required tools. Well, maybe this wasn't here before, but I added the Azure CLI, didn't I? So maybe that has something going on there. Let's switch to that. Now, what is this? The server. So is there a new? There's no new. So I can't create a new server, but I can create a database. Okay. Now I could go back. Let me just think about this. In the portal, if you want to create an Azure database and there's not a server that you want to use, it gives you like the new option. They sort of build them in there both together, right? But look, I could come in here and, oh no, look, it took me to the portal. So the tool doesn't quite have that one yet. All right. And that's okay because I'm going to go back because I don't really care. We're just playing around here. But I can go to database and I can, still asks me to accept that each time, right? I can go here and let's choose, oh, sorry, wrong one. let's go to my TDTS server. Database name, we're going to call it demo Azure Data Studio demo. We'll call it that, ADS demo. Sort of standard stuff. Look, create firewall rule. We talked about this earlier. Create a firewall rule for your local clients. It's going to do that for me out of the box, which is, helpful, right? I'm going to call this Andy's house again, right? Minimum. I think this is separate. I'm going to go back on that. No, this is. I would have thought that this is. No, it's not doing it automatically. I see. I misunderstood what it was doing. So I'm going to call it Andy's IP. And I can always just do.
I've seen this kind of UI in asking me the same thing in SQL Server Management Studio, and it like goes ahead and supplies the IP, but here it's making you
Yes, that's what I thought it was going to do with this checkbox, right?
Yeah, so everyone please
I hope
direct
I'm
your
not crazy. This is sort of
DDoS
like
attacks
I don't think it's
to
what's that?
please direct your
Yeah.
DDoS attacks to 100.
Well, isn't that like FiOS? So like everybody has the like. It's
No,
not like
that's yours.
I think it's your. I thought it's your outgoing one, which shows up as like the same as like a million other things. I don't know. Maybe I'm going to get screwed, but we'll see. It changes anyway, right? It's not like consistent. So
You could probably disconnect your router for an hour, and it'll be different when you plug it back in.
Look at this. Oh, look at all this. Create, connect, configure Python. Why do I want to do that? This seems like I'm going down a rabbit hole I don't want to go down. You know?
I wonder if maybe under the covers Azure Data Studio is using like a Python SDK of some kind. I don't know. I'm just
going to bail. I'm honestly bailing out on that. I don't think I need to go down that far. It would probably work, but I don't know if I really want to. Here, create, set variables. What is this stuff? It's also with a notebook. See? Set variables. Maybe that was all based on the fact that it thought it was going to build a notebook. Because this is like Python, right? So I don't know. That just seemed like a weird jump it made, didn't it? I don't know. Done with that anyway.
I love that notebook there to like kind of teach you as you're working. That's cool.
Yeah, that is true. That is cool. Yeah. So I don't know. Anything else we want to talk about here? I don't know. Thoughts on basic Azure SQL stuff or Azure Data Studio?
Kind of a good run through.
Yeah, just a little getting started kind of stuff, showing a tool that I don't think, as I said earlier, Chris, before you came on, I think a lot of people are moving to Azure SQL, but it's not like unanimous. I know plenty of people still using databases in the server, but I do find that a lot of people haven't found that tool yet, that Azure Data Studio. They're using, and we said earlier, there's a whole bunch of ways you can connect to Azure, whether it's Azure SQL Server Management Studio or tooling through Visual Studio or tooling through, VS Code, right? But this is a tool I tend to like. I just love that it's very lightweight. So I'm curious to know if people are watching, if this is something that they hadn't heard of before. It's good to know. And Chris, we talked earlier about how this was a little bit of an audible, threw together a quick show on something that I thought would be interesting to people. And we're going to get Brian Manisi in here in a couple of weeks when we have some free space on the schedule. Now, next week, we said there's no show for those of you that are regulars, we won't be here next week because both Chris and I are not available. And while we can wing it with two, it gets kind of tough to run the show on your own. Right, Rich?
I think so.
Yeah. Um, and and then the following, what else do we have on deck? We have a couple meetings. I think the after that, right, guys? Um,
Yeah,
do we have anything in meetup?
we actually do. Yes. Let's see. So, what can I share? So, come on. Skype. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry. Try this one. Boy, Skype is really holding me up here. All right, let's try that. So, how's this?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, cool. So, in 2 weeks, we'll go ahead and do a show. Something we've been talking about for a while. We're actually going to go ahead and do a show on Power Platform for developers, and be really great to hear some of the thoughts from the developer community, because oftentimes I'll be honest, the first time I talk to would be talking to someone who are pro developers really focused on this. Usually it's a combination of business people and some of the enterprise IT folks. But yeah, I think this would be a fun conversation and something that we've wanted to do for a while.
Yeah, that's right. And I think the week after that, so you're in meetup now. I don't know if the next one's in meetup yet, right?
I don't think it is. We just talked about it.
No, the one after.
27th? Yeah.
Okay, I missed it. I was sorry, distracted
okay.
for a minute.
It's not in meetup, but there is a
No, it's
plan,
not.
right?
Yes. You want to share the plan?
Yeah, except that I'm getting tired and my mind just went like blank.
Yep. I'm here.
And I am doing the topic and I honestly can't remember what it's called.
It is called Playwright.
Thank you, Playwright. God, I really was blanking out. Yeah, so I wanted to do a show on Microsoft Playwright, right, which is the new. I don't even know how new it is. I think new is still a good word, safe word to say about Playwright. Although it's gaining traction, it's been around a little while now. And it's basically Microsoft's solution for testing web applications and being able to, a lot of us are used to doing unit testing against our code, but often we want to do what we might be considered more of an end user testing or an integration testing where we actually like execute things in a browser. The script will go through and say, open a browser, navigate to the page, google.com, enter the following text in the search box, and see what comes back and validate the response, right? And then do assertions and things like that on there. And Playwright is, let's see, let me go to the website and see what we get when we go to Microsoft. This is Microsoft's answer. And let's see. You can
You're gonna have to reshare.
Sharing. Yeah. Share again. Yeah. Okay. So as it says here, Playwright enables reliable end-to-end testing for modern web apps. Right? It's really gaining traction when you search around for tools to use. There's been some tried and true favorites that have been around for a while. And if you're wondering, and if you're someone that uses one of those tried and true ones, one of the benefits of Playwright is that it does things like auto weighting and things like that. So if you've done any of this kind of stuff, typically you have to sort of wait. You have to say like, do something, wait a little bit of time, do something else. and Playwright has a few features similar to that where it really does some nice stuff. Um, and so we're going to be taking a look at this product, and I'm excited to do that show. It should be fun.
Excellent. Very cool.
Yeah.
And I'm going to stop sharing.
That's all right. I already shipped it away.
Yeah, good man.
Yeah. So we got some. The good thing is we have some shows lined up pretty much to the end of the month. We've got some things in the on the planning deck. So yeah. So all of those. Well, all both of those will be a meetup shortly. The one for Power Platform in 2 weeks is. So feel free to RSVP. Let us know you're going to be there. And yeah, somehow I wound up taking us out of here. Didn't want to do that.
Yeah. What's wrong with that?
No. All right. So yeah, we can head that way. It's kind of this is a long one, but that's good. Great topic, Andy. Great to dive into SQL.
Oh my God, it's long. I didn't realize what time it was.
Yeah. Goes quick.
Yeah, but yeah, I should have put a stop to that sooner, huh?
We'll let you go. You know, we're okay.
No,
with
it was
that.
great. Thank you for running
Yeah,
through
definitely.
that. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
my pleasure. It was fun. Appreciate the comments from everybody in the crowd. You know, we love all the comments. We love time flies when you're having fun. Amen, Dark Killer. Yeah, we love people joining in. It was great to have a interesting question from a person who was new to sort of SQL space, you know, and that kind of thing, and you know, questions from everybody is always great. And Chris, thanks for making it. We know you were late, and you know, we're all here as a team. You had some stuff to do. It happens. But I'm going to take us out of here, right? So hopefully we'll see everybody back here in 2 weeks on the Dev Talk Show, and have a good night. We'll see you then.